By far the most popular iteration of Thor outside of Norse paganism is Marvel's Thor from the MCU. In fact, I'm willing to bet that these days most people are first introduced to him through Marvel movies rather than the folkloric tradition he originated from. So it's only natural that aspects of Marvel's Thor have influenced people's general understanding of the character. This isn't a bad thing, it's just how mythology works. But it does lead to some confusion for those who want to untangle traditional Norse mythology from its modern iterations. Most myth conceptions about Thor center around his most iconic item, his hammer Mjolnir. Marvel introduced the idea that Mjolnir is the medium through which Thor channels his godly power, and only those worthy of such power are able to lift it. This concept does not exist at all in traditional Norse mythology. It was 100% made up by the creators of the comics. In the Prose Edda, one of our main medieval sources for Norse mythology, Mjolnir is created by two dwarves named Brock and Atri, and when they present the hammer to Thor, they actually list its main abilities. It's indestructible, so he can swing it as hard as he wants. It can shrink for convenient carrying, and when he throws it, it'll always hit its target, then come right back to his hand. That's something Marvel did actually borrow, though they modified it to where he can literally just call it to his hand from any location even if it's resting. But there's no mention of any rules for who can and can't carry it, and we know other people could carry it because in the poem Thrymskvida, Mjolnir is actually stolen by a Jotun named Thrym, and Thor has to disguise himself as Freya to get it back, which is fun. I made a video about that myth. There may, however, have been some factors that limited who can practically use Mjolnir. After Ragnarok, Thor's sons Magni and Modi both inherit the hammer, which might imply it was so heavy it required their combined strength to carry. It's also said that in order to wield his hammer effectively, Thor needs to be wearing a pair of iron gloves called Yarngraper, but it's not explained exactly why he needs them. Do they give him the strength required to lift Mjolnir's weight? Do they make it easier to grip since the handle is shorter than it's supposed to be? We can speculate, we can make up our own explanations, but unfortunately we cannot pretend to know what medieval Scandinavians thought. Related to this, another myth conception I see a lot is that Thor also needed to be wearing his belt Megingjard to use Mjolnir, but this is never actually stated in the medieval sources. The belt was definitely an important item for Thor. The Prose Edda says when he buckles it on, his divine strength doubles, but it doesn't say that that boost in strength is required to lift his hammer. So that's a new fun technicality to correct people on at parties. I'm sure everyone will like you now. Another thing Mjolnir surprisingly doesn't do in medieval sources is shoot lightning. We think of Thor as the god of thunder, but in fact he never actually demonstrates power over thunder and lightning in traditional mythology. The names Thor and Mjolnir are etymologically connected to the words for thunder and lightning, and 11th century Christian writer Adam of Bremen describes the pagan god as having power over the elements of the sky, including thunder and lightning, and compares him to Jupiter of classical mythology. So there was likely an association, but not one nearly as strong as modern media would have you believe. Still, it's very easy to imagine a medieval Scandinavian kid getting scared by a thunderstorm, and their parents saying, "Aw, don't worry kiddo, that's just the sound of Thor far away hammering on monsters to keep us safe." Anyway, yet another thing Mjolnir can't do is fly. Instead, Thor has to get around on his wagon drawn by two goats named, Tongrisnir and Tongnjost. I tried. These goats, again despite common representations, are never said to be able to fly, but they are apparently fast enough to leave trails of fire and destroy mountains in their path. So, you know what, that's actually cooler than the Marvel version.